And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your early Monday evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Another movie anniversary. Today is, well, it's 31 years since the release of a surprise sleeper box office hit baseball movie called Rookie of the Year. But that's merely a trifle. It isn't really that interesting of a film to talk about. It's a lot of silly sight gags and quotable lines floated and all this. It's not really, I don't think, a movie worthy of an entire episode. But 4 years before, July 7, 1993 was July 7, 1989. 36 years ago today saw the release of the first sequel to a massively successful franchise. On July 7, 1989, Richard Donner's Lethal Weapon 2 opened in theaters. And there are certain movie summers which, without Googling, I will say from memory are more stacked than others. Well, that's kind of obvious. But 1989 was an incredibly stacked movie summer. So was 1993. For reference, 93 was Jurassic Park, In the Line of Fire, Rookie of the Year, The Fugitive, and Dave, Cliffhanger. It was just a crazy summer searching for Bobby Fischer. And then there were a lot of high-profile misses, such as Super Mario Brothers, Dennis the Menace. But 1989 may be the most stacked of stacked summers. You had Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You had Lethal Weapon 2. You had Ghostbusters 2. You had Tim Burton's Batman. You had Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, a little counter-programming, if you will. Karate Kid 3, not very good. Timothy Dalton, The Living Daylights, License to Kill, the sequel, a much better movie than it was given credit for at the time. So it was a loaded movie summer. And Lethal Weapon 2 hit the street on this day, 1989, and got mostly good reviews from critics. Siskel and Ebert, 2 thumbs up. Roger gave it 3.5 out of 4. Really liked it. He liked it more than the first one. And the film was a significant box office success. It cost about $30 million to produce and market, and it made somewhere between 225 and 230 in worldwide box office gross. And it is a more entertaining film than the first one. If we just go by move the plot from point A to point B to point C, there are more comedic beats in the sequel than the original. The original was promoted in some circles, and even now it's still discussed as if it's an action comedy on the order of Beverly Hills Cop or Rush Hour. It's not. Spoiler alert, it's not. Lethal Weapon 2 is a strange bird in the sense that it's both more serious than the original because the stakes are kind of higher and more jokey, and there appears to be a lot more ad-libbing in the sequel. And they basically gave Mel Gibson, it seemed that he had free reign to kind of fuck around in this movie. There's more ad-libbing with Mel's character. Martin Riggs has been softened and kind of sanitized or homogenized just a little. He's not the live wire he is in the first movie. He has grown. He's not suicidal anymore. But there are certain movies where you have, and you see this now, where a certain group of villains where nobody's going to give a shit that this particular group of people are the villains. And this is something that Hollywood struggled with the following year with Bonfire of the Vanities, where you had every social, ethnic, socioeconomic class just getting savaged in Tom Wolfe's book. And then you start calculating, how are we going to make this movie if every single social and ethnic class represented in this book, they all suck? In the movie, are we just going to pretend that we're just going to make believe they don't all suck? It could sort of drive you insane at the studio level, and even just as a fan wondering what they're going to do. Well, Lethal Weapon 2 gives us very low-hanging fruit for the villains. They are all South African thieves and just pure unrepentant scumbags. Like, these are the people that would have locked up Mandela and just thrown away the key. They are so craven and so horrendous. There was no lobby to say, well, we shouldn't have these people as bad guys in this movie. Nobody gave a shit. And it's perfect the way that The two main actors, Joss Ackland, who was really, really good, and Derek O'Connor, they're kind of the two top guys of this gang of South African scumbags. And because Danny Glover played Mandela in a movie, there's a little bit of an in-joke and what appears to be a reference to that. And Mel and Danny pull that scene off perfectly. And it's one of Gibson's sort of broader performances. And Joe Pesci brings out the best in both guys. Joe Pesci as Leo Getz, whatever you want, Leo Getz. Leo Getz is not a particularly good guy, but he has a heart. He is a criminal. He's a money launderer, but he knows a lot of people of influence and a lot of people who can get shit done. And he's about to go into the witness protection program. There could be any number of people who want to bump him off, not just our South African buddies. And Joe Pesci's performance was so good, is so good. There was Best Supporting Actor Oscar buzz for him. But you know what? Jack didn't get a Best Supporting Actor. I don't even think he got nominated for Batman. So I would say in terms of really showy supporting roles, I mean, Sean Connery didn't get nominated for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So 89 must have been a really stacked year. That was the year that I believe Daniel Day-Lewis won the Best Actor for My Left Foot. Willem Dafoe was up for supporting, I think, for Born on the 4th of July, but I don't know who won supporting that year. I know a lot of random trivia, but I never actually studied who won which Oscars in what year. I just happen to know that Daniel Day-Lewis won it for My Left Foot. And Tom Cruise could have gotten the Oscar were it not for, Daniel Day-Lewis. Maybe he's in the top 3 or 4 greatest actors who ever lived, right? Guy is unbelievable. He never misses. But Lethal Weapon 2 is a fun action movie. And I don't see the first Lethal Weapon as a fun action movie because Mel Gibson's character of Martin Riggs being suicidal, and the film takes it seriously. It is not just a plot point. It is essential to his character that we understand this is a young man who was presumably traumatized by Vietnam. He has lost his wife needlessly, and for better or worse, they actually tie his wife, Victoria Lynn Riggs. They're supposed to be, I guess he's probably around 35. She's maybe a couple of years younger, and she's already gone when the first Lethal Weapon opens, and that's why his character is suicidal. Now, maybe he was always a live wire. Again, he's an expert marksman. He has that kind of daredevil personality, but maybe losing his wife accentuated. We don't know that level of backstory in Lethal Weapon 1, but what we know is that Victoria died in a car crash, and I always thought it was a bit of a callback to the original Dirty Harry, where Clint Eastwood doesn't seem to have a home. He doesn't even have the mobile home of Mel Gibson's Martin Riggs. He doesn't have anything. As far as we know, Harry Callahan lives and sleeps in police headquarters, and none of it makes any sense because he seems like he certainly doesn't have a death wish. He's certainly not suicidal. He's just a guy out there trying to do his job, and motherfuckers keep stopping him from doing his job, that kind of thing. And then you say, well, maybe someone like this does need a little bit of a leash. He needs to be controlled. You can't just let a Harry Callahan or a Martin Riggs do what they want because we still have to follow. We got to follow the rules. There's still such a thing as Miranda rights. There is still the First Amendment, whatever. But in Dirty Harry, we find out in the latter portion of the story that his wife has passed. She dies in an accident that sounds very similar to the way we learn that Victoria Riggs passes. I don't think that Shane Black threw that in there accidentally. I think he was deliberately echoing the fact that Harry Callahan, it almost seems that he's still in it because he doesn't have anything else in his life with his wife gone. And Martin Riggs, the job, as he says it, that's why he doesn't put a bullet through his head, doing the job. So he's suicidal in the first movie. In the second movie, he's not. But in a little bit of clever retrofitting, it seems that our South African scumbags, they're claiming responsibility for Martin Riggs' wife dying. And that is the darkest element. That right there is the darkest thing in this movie. Because there are a lot of lighthearted moments. There's a running gag where the daughter of Danny Glover's Roger Murtaugh is an aspiring actress and model. The young actress Tracy Wolf, she's terrific whenever she appears in the film. She's really solid. But he thinks that And we as the audience think it's just going to be a regular, my daughter's in a commercial, and she doesn't tell her father. Remember, there's no YouTube, there's nothing. She says, I shot a commercial. Maybe she said we were on a beach, whatever, but she doesn't say what the commercial, what product she's pitching. And so the whole family gathers around the TV, and also gathering around the TV is a great character actor who I love. He's fantastic in the movie Breakdown 8 years later. His name's Jack McGee. And he's a contractor. He's working on Martin Riggs' house. And he's just standing around, and, nobody gives him permission to watch it or not. He's working on a house. He's standing around. And it turns out that the commercial is for condoms. And Danny Glover's slow burn when he realizes that his little girl, he doesn't say this, but his little girl is completely sexualized in this commercial. And you got Joe Pesci there. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Joe Pesci's character is not there, but that bit pays off later. But he starts to flip out. And as Danny Glover, as only he can, Trish, take the kids upstairs. Just like he's going to start shooting, and, what was it? Gene Hackman in Unforgiven. I'm just going to start shooting, and I'm going to think it was self-defense. He's ready to kill every motherfucker in the room. In the words of Samuel L. Jackson, when you absolutely positively have to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitute, he's just ready to go. He's ready to go postal here. And Mel is brilliant in this. I mean, he's brilliant throughout the film, but in this particular scene, because on the one hand, this is his buddy and he's taking him seriously, but on the other, the opportunity for humor, it's just too great for him to pass up. And the contractor, the Jack McGee character, gets to deliver the home run line after Murtaugh seems to have calmed down, and the boyfriend of his daughter, he's going to leave and she's going to, go with him, even though the kid is now scared of Murtaugh. And Mel jokes about it. Don't worry about it. He's got a gun, but he's not a very good shot. You should be okay. Like, he's messing with everybody. And the contractor doesn't understand what the big deal is. Why is Murtaugh so upset? And he just goes, I liked it. I mean, she made me want to go out and buy rubbers right now. Mel Gibson's reaction to that line is absolute cinematic gold, where he's so desperately trying not to laugh, but he just can't help it. He just goes, no, and almost turns on the couch and covers his face because he doesn't want Roger to see him completely losing his shit. And then he makes a joke at the end of the scene. It's no big deal, Roger. Just remember, it's in one ear and out the rubber. And that stuff is all great. And Lethal Weapon 2 is on a short list of movies that I saw more than once in theaters. Not as many films as you would think that I saw it twice or even 3 times in theaters. Films I saw 3 times in theaters, only 2 of them. Terminator 2, which I saw with my grandfather. If you happen to watch last week's podcast or listen to it, I saw with my grandfather the day it opened in July of 1991. I was 17. I saw it there. Then I saw it with my dad, and then I saw it again in theaters by myself. The Truman Show, I saw 3 times in a 5-day stretch. That is how blown away I was by what Peter Weir did in that film. Just incredible. Films I saw twice: Lethal Weapon 2, LA Confidential, which I saw in theaters in September of 97. And then when they did a re-release for the build up to the Oscars, I saw it again with a couple of friends. I don't know that there's anything else. I think that's it. I think just those movies. I'd go to see a movie once, and once was enough. But what Lethal Weapon 2 does, it gives us a different, it doesn't just repeat the first movie. And I like the fact that they take the characters in a different direction, still sticking to the buddy action ethos, amping up the comedy, but one of the comedic bits and an extended sequence of Roger Murtaugh about to fall victim to the kind of bomb that was planted in, speaking of Clint and Dirty Harry, the second Dirty Harry film. It's a similar kind of setup where, well, in that case, it's kind of a mad bomber type, and his partner unfortunately falls victim to a bomb. But in Lethal Weapon 2, they don't just have it that Roger Murtaugh needs to escape from a bomb which will kill him. It's he's taking a crap when he realizes there's probably a bomb behind the toilet. Now, you can say they didn't really want him dead, or that it wouldn't work, that Murtaugh is protected by plot armor. He's not going to die 45 minutes into the movie, because you run it through your head and say, if they wanted to kill him, why would they give him information which would convince him if he moves his ass from that toilet, he's literally going to get, he's going to get blown sky high, so to speak. But even with that, where there is every chance that both guys could die, because Mel's Martin Riggs, he's not letting his buddy, no, I'm going to be there with him. I got to help pull him out, and we'll pull the bomb blanket on us and we'll just hope for the best. Even with the high tension of that scene, we keep laughing because we already know these characters so well. And that they make a joke about they should have put a bomb in the kitchen because Riggs's wife, Murtaugh's wife can't cook. She's a terrible cook. And said, should have put it in the kitchen. And then Mel Gibson goes, yeah, think of all the needless suffering that would have been avoided. And he's laughing, and Glover is cracking up and laughing and laughing and laughing. And that's when he finally says, I'm going to die in the toilet, aren't I? There's also a little beat at the beginning of the scene where Roger Murtaugh points out, I'm finally alone. I finally got a little bit of peace. I got my magazine. I'm ready to go. And I look to my left and I see that on the toilet paper, it says, boom. And he's going to go. So the plot doesn't exactly go in a straight line. You have these South African bad guys with enormous amounts of money in Krugerrands that they're going to presumably turn into cash. And various members of the police department are getting bumped off. And there's a running bit, which is not a joke, where these guys are all diplomats. They're all official. Like, these are not random people who show up. They are diplomats who moonlight as hardcore criminals. And there's a scene where they attempt to arrest the lead guy played by Joss Ackland, and they can't do anything. And it's the sort of thing where if they try to bring them down to the station, they're probably going to get suspended and maybe even fired. There are certain lines which can't be crossed. Diplomatic immunity. Doesn't matter what these guys are doing. It doesn't matter how dirty they are. Steve Cahan, who I think was Richard Donner's cousin, the filmmaker, he also plays one of the cops trying to track down Ned Beatty in the original Superman. A really good actor, and I like his performance as the captain. But he points out the obvious. It doesn't matter that he's dirty. He's a diplomat. You can't go after this guy. Now, they're going to go after him. And honestly, if somebody is shooting at you, diplomat or not, all bets are off. And maybe the best line reading this is not much of a spoiler, maybe the best line reading in Danny Glover's quite considerable, formidable career comes when one of the guys shouts at him, diplomatic immunity, and Danny just kind of twists his neck around and goes, it's just been revoked. Great stuff. Now, if we look at the film career of Mel Gibson, we don't need to talk about any of his controversies or some of the stuff that he's said over the years. I'm just looking at it. The guy is a brilliant actor. He's a great filmmaker. Just a really talented guy all around, and he's good with comedy. That's not something that people would have imagined when he did Gallipoli with Peter Weir in 81, Year of Living Dangerously, which I love, with Peter Weir and Sigourney Weaver, and Michael Murphy, and an incredibly extraordinary Linda Hunt, who won the Oscar. You wouldn't have looked at him and said, he's definitely going to be funny, or he definitely has it in him to be funny. It's not the same as Arnold Schwarzenegger surprising everybody by being so quick with a wisecrack, but also having such impeccable timing that he gets laughs with lines that don't even seem that amusing. But Mel Gibson is great with comedy. He is great with comedy. And we saw it in really silly movies like What Women Want, where he's just able to make you laugh. And you saw some of it in movies like Bird on a Wire, and even films such as even Tequila Sunrise, although there's not that much humor in that film. But Maverick, he's very funny in Maverick. Maverick is kind of more of an action comedy than certainly the first Lethal Weapon. But if you look at the leading ladies who Mel has worked with, he's worked with a lot of big hitters. Like his chemistry with Rene Russo in the Lethal Weapon. The following movies, I think, is pretty good. And then he worked with her in Ransom, and that was a different kind of a situation because their characters were married, not just, dating. But Mel, to me, always has good chemistry with his female co-stars if there is a romantic component in the story. You wouldn't think the pairing of Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver would work, but man, they were already like pros, even though they're both on the rise at that point, 1982. It somehow works. You have a story, love caught in the fire of revolution. They're all going to die. Let's just stop, let's press pause for a couple of days and we can have a lot of sex and then we'll try to flee the country. Like that. That's pretty much what happens in the movie. But Mel had good chemistry with Goldie Hawn in Bird on a Wire. He and Michelle Pfeiffer, I mean, they were lighting it up in Tequila Sunrise. And you could say that she had great chemistry with Kurt Russell too. That's a film I'm probably going to have to talk about. That's a film about 3 movie stars. Don't get bogged down in the plot and what's Raul Julia's character's story and Arliss Howard and J.T. Walsh. What's he doing? No. You don't need to go that deep. It's a film about 3 movie stars. It's about Kurt, Mel, and Michelle all looking spectacular. And, a little bit of, in the immortal words of Tony Coffin, montage et trois. But Mel and the British actress, she British or Australian? I think she might be Australian. I apologize. I should have known this already. Patsy Kensit. She plays a more important role than it seems. She looks like she's just going to be set decoration. Very attractive, open face, smile. And she is like, she's a little bit more than a secretary for the bad guys. But we quickly deduce, and Mel's character of Martin Riggs quickly deduces, she's not a bad person. She just happens to work for these assholes. And as she points out, she likes her job. They don't make her do anything. She doesn't do anything illegal. She looks good for them. It makes them look better that they have such an attractive lady working for them. I mean, I assume that's part of it because they don't really try to get her involved in the dirty business. They just are a bunch of craven scumbags. But it's also an angle of the story. When you think about it, it hurts because what we know of Martin Riggs is he is still not right. He'll never be okay because his wife shouldn't have died. She shouldn't have died. There was no reason for it. As Clint Eastwood says, in the case of Dirty Harry, his wife was driving home late one night and a drunk crossed the center line. And as he just quietly says, there's no reason for it. There was no reason for Victoria Riggs to die, regardless of who claims responsibility, if in fact they're telling the truth or just fucking with it. We don't really know. We're going to take it at face value. But he slowly starts to court the character of Rika, played by Patsy Kensit. And we know that Mel has the ability to be charming. He's a little bit klutzy in this deliberately because he's out of practice. This was a guy who's in a different version of this. He's still married to Victoria. He's not flirting with this random secretary or low-level executive, this gang of awful people. But the chemistry between them is really good. It's as good as any of the other, leading ladies that Mel worked with, in my opinion. No, I didn't think that he had great chemistry with Julia Roberts, but that's not really a romance. It has romance elements. That's a very strange film. Conspiracy Theory, also Richard Donner. It's a very weird movie. And I thought he and Jodie Foster actually had terrific chemistry in Maverick. And, he and Jodie, they did that film, the movie where he talked into his hand. He had the hand puppet. I forgot the name of the movie. I didn't think it was that good. Great performance by Mel, but I didn't think the film was really that great. But he and Patsy Kensit, when they finally kind of get together, they not only strike sparks, because you can have 2 really good-looking people get it on in a movie. As I said with Tequila Sunrise, which was the film that Mel shot before Lethal Weapon. I'm pretty sure Tequila Sunrise came out late 1988. I think there was an idea that could be some Oscar buzz because you had Robert Towne, the screenwriter behind Chinatown, and also a fine filmmaker, was responsible for that. And that's a movie that looks great. But I would say that the character that Patsy Kensit plays, she really falls for Martin Riggs, and he falls for her. And as much as it's a cliche to say, Martin Riggs, the wounded warrior, literally, figuratively, symbolically, spiritually, opens himself up to this woman who means him only good. He starts to fall in love, and it seems as if it's mutual. But then circumstances spin the plot and the story into another direction. And Martin Riggs almost reverts back to the rage-filled, hateful, avenging angel of the first movie. He's not suicidal. Now he just wants to kill everybody. Fuck every one of them. Like that kind of thing. Steven Seagal, the same year, a little bit later in Hard to Kill, I think Hard to Kill may have been late 89. The point is, in that movie, Seagal actually has a moment where he's asked, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm going to get him. Every fucking one of them. And Mel's character, he's going to get them all. And there is a catharsis to it. And even more so than the first one, Martin Riggs seems like a tragic figure in this film. A very talented, ingenious individual who has dealt with physical and spiritual and psychological pain that most of us can't even reach. And that's not a bad thing. Nobody would want to be this guy, even though, yeah, he looks like Mel Gibson. You would not want this guy's particular set of personal traumas that he has absorbed. But it's the chemistry also between the two guys. And there was a clip which was, I thought it was really nice. At a recent convention that Mel appeared at, he didn't realize that Danny Glover was also going to be there. And when Mel saw him, he just raced over, gave him a huge hug, gave him a peck on the cheek, and he started crying. And Danny wasn't crying, he was just happy. But I don't know, call me old-fashioned, I like to see that. Because not everybody who worked together liked one another. Sometimes there are people, it doesn't matter who have great chemistry on screen and really fucking hated each other in real life. The genuine affection, they didn't know cameras were going, between Mel and Danny, 36 years after Lethal Weapon 2, 27 years after the last Lethal Weapon film, which was Lethal 4. I don't know. I like that. That's something made my day when I saw it. It really was good. But they feel like unofficial brothers, for real. That kind of like Wesley Snipes, Woody Harrelson, the joke in the movie Money Train from 95, that they're foster brothers, but they've spent their lives together and each one can sense what the other one is going to do, that sort of thing. In the world of Lethal Weapon 2, Mel and Danny can read each other's thoughts. They know I know what he's going to do. This is what Roger's going to do. This is what Riggs is going to do. You better watch out. And Pesci is like, he doesn't disappear. Once he enters the story that they have to try to protect him, and then he realized that this situation is a lot more serious than they realized. You never lose sight of Pesci. He has some show-stopping moments, a lot of times moments of humor. The infamous scene where he starts screaming, they fuck you at the drive-thru because he got some kind of burger and they gave him tuna, which he doesn't eat, and he's screaming and carrying on. I think that Lethal Weapon 2 is what got him Goodfellas, though, because he had been out of the public eye for a couple of years. He did Easy Money with Rodney, but he didn't work as steadily in as high profile of projects as someone of his talent level should have. And Lethal Weapon 2 was kind of re-announcing to the world, this is one of the finest film actors, literally one of the best film actors alive. You look at what he does in Lethal 2, yeah, it's mostly a figure of fun, but the character gets into some heavy shit towards the end of the film, and he shows his grit and his mettle. But you look at what he does as Leo Getz. You look at what he does in his Oscar-winning turn the following year as Tommy DeVito in Goodfellas. And then you look at him in Home Alone as one of the wet bandits along with Daniel Stern. That is masterclass level. In 18 months, for him to craft three really distinctive characters, one in a straight up, well, not even straight up, I was going to say one in a comedic vein, straight up comedic vein in Home Alone, but he is trying to hurt an 8-year-old kid, so I don't know that I would say it's purely comedic with menace. Goodfellas, he plays almost entirely menace with a little sprinkling of humor. And in Lethal Weapon 2, it's more of a broadly comedic character, even though he's a criminal. And he's just, I can't imagine another actor ever being able to play those three roles as effectively as Joe Pesci. And there was talk at the time, as I said, of an Oscar nomination, but also, where was this guy? Why wasn't he in more movies of this quality, of this level of budget, filmmaker, actors, story? But Pesci's, the kind of second act of his career, this movie kicked it into high gear. And you know what? Cinema is grateful. If nothing else, Lethal Weapon 2 brought Joe Pesci back into the mainstream, where he never should have left. He should have been there all along. And he continued to do incredible work. Obviously, My Cousin Vinny is terrific, and The Super is not that great. But Home Alone 2, he gets a lot of laughs. I would say he's better in that movie than Daniel Stern, but that's neither here nor there. And the movie With Honors, which is kind of a trashy, guilty pleasure movie, I really like Joe's performance. That was 1994. He just had a great 5-year run of really high caliber work. Even if the movies weren't entirely successful, he was great. He didn't take any movies off. Even The Super, which is not a good movie, you see him straining to get every laugh and every ounce of heart from the material, which really, I don't think that was worthy of his talents. But Lethal Weapon 2, a film that was, in a way, a product of its time because of the kind of South African, the politics and all of that sort of stuff. But it is a timeless film because it is one of the best buddy movies ever made, and a better representation of what you will call a classic action comedy than the first one, which to me is an action thriller with occasional pauses for a little bit of comedy. There are sustained sequences in Lethal Weapon 2 that are just going to make you laugh, and I appreciate that. It doesn't have to be serious all the time. The film pauses, gives us those moments to kind of get our breath back before the next death-defying stunt, or who's going to get shot, or one of our principals actually going to die. Well, how are they going to make Lethal Weapon 3? But I love this movie. As I say, I saw it twice in theaters. I've probably seen it at least 10 additional times on cable over the years, DVD, streaming. Shouldn't be a comfort film, but it kind of is a comfort film. Lethal Weapon 2, released on this day, July 7th, 1989, directed by the great and late, sadly, Richard Donner. Supposedly was working on a Lethal 5 when he passed, and starring Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, Joe Pesci, Joss Ackland, and Derek O'Connor. This has been episode 577 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Monday early evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.